Coming to you from his downtown Denver studio, here's the Backstage Jazz Radio Show with your host, Steve Roby.
Welcome, friends at home and friends in the studio. This is the Backstage Jazz Show, and I'm Steve Roby. My guest today is Denver jazz pianist and educator Justin Adams. We'll talk about the value of music education and listen to a few tracks with his band. Welcome to Backstage Jazz, Justin.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me on. Cool podcast you have going.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Well, let's start out with the first question. What sparked your interest in becoming a musician, and who were some of your mentors?
Man, I love that question because it allows me to, call to mind my actual ancestors. I think of them as my spiritual ancestors, and these are the stories that get lost, right? Because time moves on, the world goes fast. And, it's actually my grandparents. I was lucky enough to grow up with grandparents who listened to Denver's KEZW radio. I heard, Glenn Miller, Frank Sinatra. When I was in sixth grade, my grandmother took me at my request to hear Frank Sinatra at McNichols, Denver's McNichols Arena.
That's
and
cool.
I was it was so cool. And, he was there in his tux. He was about 80 years old at the time.
Well, still.
There was just, there was a mystique about him that was just phenomenal. And by that time, I had actually already kind of I started by playing pop organ in the 70s. You go and you learn how to play chords and put on the drum machine on these organs with flashing lights, and that had real appeal to me. But I learned how to play the big band hits, so I was playing Glenn Miller tunes and big band hits, and at that time, and I made a cassette tape of my organ playing, and I was going to give that to Frank Sinatra. So I went down to the stage, and it threw me because the stage height was higher than I could stand, and I just remember looking at his ankles, and people were giving him roses, and I thought, who am I, this kid, to give him this tape of my organ playing, and I chickened out.
Oh, man.
And so, man, you never know what could have happened. I had early gigs. I played at another great place in Denver that gets forgotten about called the Organ Grinder Restaurant. It's this enormous pipe organ that had a glass encased pipes and strobe lights and all kinds of crazy. So they should serve pizza, and I got to play for silent movies that came down on this pipe organ. Yeah, I thought I was really going to be some kind of pop star playing the organ, if you can imagine that. And then, that was my early stuff. But then I got into high school and thought, man, organ isn't all that hip. And, really had, spent my childhood, really gravitating towards jazz music. Whenever jazz piano came on, on the radio or on a TV show, I just knew, I had a sensation I was supposed to do that. Hearing Tito Puente on Sesame Street and hearing that piano montuno, I just knew that was what I was going to do. So I abandoned the organ for the piano and started, looking to the people in Denver who were really lucky to have, and started my journey that way. Went to Metro State, studied with Ron Miles there, was really lucky to get to do that in the early 90s, and met Art Landy, who was my mentor, on piano for my lifetime, really. Now I'm sorry I didn't play the organ because I got a B3 in my band room.
Oh, man. And I was just, when you were talking about that, I was flashing on Jimmy Smith, and I was like, that would be kind of a cool inspiration to start playing organ. Yeah.
I know. I got to get back into it, but now that I'm old, I don't have quite, and have a family, then I'm always trying to look for time that I can start, really trying to figure out how to play that instrument, which is it's a real beast. It's much harder now that I know what it can actually do.
Right.
It's easy when I was a kid and I could just fake it. So that's my story.
Okay.
I'm sticking to it.
All right. So when did you decide to make a switch and become a music educator?
Well, yeah, that's also funny, Steve. I never really thought I would be. I tried some early lessons, teaching people. It just felt so hard. I remember looking at the clock and feeling like, man, I can't get through a half hour. You get to about 20 minutes of teaching somebody and you think, I'll never make it. I don't know what to do with this person. It took a while for me to realize that the true joy is being able to be patient with somebody, to sit with somebody, and to allow and to show somebody how to get through or how to succeed or the fun in music, to just share that. And when that started happening, I really, you had another person you interviewed, Joe Andrews, who just recently. And, I met him in the early 2000s and watched what he did educationally, where he began teaching jazz by trading fours, with his students. He'd pick up all kinds of different instruments and just say, okay, let's trade. And he had me come in and play with some of his students at his schools. And and when that happened, I realized, hey, I can do this with my private students. I was just teaching beginning piano lessons at the time. And I thought, why don't I have them just start improvising kind of in a follow. I just said, follow the leader. And I'd play something and I'd have them play after me. And just how cool that was for people to get to do that.
So now you're teaching at Kent, Denver. Tell me about this.
So Kent, Denver is a place where, we really like to teach pop music. We teach R&B. We teach some jazz. We teach a lot of music, and especially what the students want to play. And in that, hopefully opening that up for students to then find their own creativity inside of those sounds. And I think, those early jazz teachings, and I've had a nice career teaching jazz music, and then making that transition from that, teaching at Metro State, into like teaching at Kent, allowed me to just really, take that idea on to teaching things like rock and roll. Why don't we solo over that? And we don't know what to do. Well, let's just enjoy making noise together, and mistakes are cool, and that type of way. Sure. And so people feel a lot of students feel a lot of joy and autonomy when they engage that way. So that's awfully fun. It's a fun way to make a living. That's for sure.
I can imagine. You probably already touched on this, but why is the value of music education so important to you?
Well, I think it's one way that we can get at the deeper kind of like things that any human being might be yearning to experience, to express. We get creative self-expression and permission to engage in that world, both personally and to be able to do that communally with each other. Those are fundamental human longings. I think we all, being an adult and coming across people who wish that they had a situation like that earlier, or, having adult piano students who get to do that, even in our lessons, or maybe they're in the adult version of CCJA, which we have here, as you know, in Denver. They just love that idea, so that experience so much of getting to play music. It lifts the soul. It helps people find their own voice, and to feel valuable and part of, and that you belong in a safe place where your creativity is encouraged and valued. I think schools at the higher levels, they talk about, inclusion, diversity. They talk about belonging, right? And music is one place we can just truly experience culture. We can experience each other and enjoy each other's differences, both personally and culturally. I mean, it's just a treasure trove of goodness there. So I think that, it's a place, and it's open to everybody at any level. You don't have to be, incredibly versed to just try to make noise with somebody on an instrument.
I'm sure as an educator and as a teacher, music teacher, you've had some rewarding experiences over the years with your students. Have any gone on to any great success that you'd like to talk about?
Oh man, that's really nice. Well, just recently, I think, one of the things I'm proud of is that our students at Kent, some of them really want to do it. They want to go and I've had a few students go to LA, be part of the great music program at USC. They have a nice contemporary commercial music program, and they're playing some gigs out there. They're high profile. A few students there from Kent, a few students from Metro, have gone on to do some playing in the world. No necessarily names that I could drop, except for to say that I get called by former students. I had a girl early on when I was teaching, private piano lessons. I remember showing her notes on the piano. She was 13 years old, and by 14, she was playing on her own, just on her own volition, on her own
Nice.
Chopin nocturnes. She was playing ragtime, and they said, "Hey, Abby, do you want to improvise like Bill Evans and play jazz?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, okay. Here's my former classical teacher. Sent her on to my former classical teacher, and then I got a call from her a few years ago. She's the professor of musicology at the University of Chicago."
Nice.
So, so the thrill that I had when I realized that I got to be the one to teach her her notes on the piano was really cool.
That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. Let's listen to some of your music with your band, and I'm going to try my best to attempt to pronounce the band's name correctly. Medianoche Honrado.
I think that's good.
Okay. B minus, maybe C plus.
That's about what I get when I try to do it too. So
okay. Well, I guess we should tell our listeners what does that translate to, and who's in the band. And the track we're going to play first is Montuno Blue. So there's a lot of questions to answer there. So go ahead.
Medianoche means midnight. That's kind of the theme of the album. It's just, it feels kind of reflective. But the other meaning is medianoche, I'm told, is a midnight snack. In fact, there's a medianoche sandwich that is a Cuban sandwich so I like to eat at midnight. And more importantly, this band, we came together during the unmentionable time in our history, the pandemic. We were formed, and we were the only band. There was, nobody was playing, but we joked that we were some of the only musicians playing in October of that year. We'd get together at Nocturne. We had a residency at Nocturne. Wonderful that we got to eat. We got to eat our own midnight snack there. As we were playing, we noticed that we like to do songs, that honored the masters of the music. Jimmy Trujillo, the late bassist who formed the original Medianoche band. His band was Medianoche that I was a part of. The Honrado part of that means that we're honoring, the memory of him and his legacy. In the band now, it's Greg Gisbert, but just a wonderful world-class trumpet player and mentor of mine, constantly. Leo Corona, who's a world-class percussionist who played with Willie Colon. Gonzalo Tepa on the bass, who also has serious credentials and is one of the best bassists I've ever met. Also a former student of mine at Metro, Alejandro Castaño, who took some piano lessons from me at Metro, but he's the drummer in this band.
Nice.
And so I get to play with him, which is just a nice friendship and long-term relationship.
And so the track Montuno Blue?
Kuvo likes to play this one a lot. This was the one that Kuvo likes too, so it's cool to check this out with you.
Here's Montuno Blue by Justin Adams and Medianoche Honrado here on Backstage Jazz. guest today on Backstage Jazz is Denver jazz pianist and educator Justin Adams. Justin, let's listen to another track.
This one is actually about the island Curacao, which is off the coast of Venezuela. Our bassist, Gonzalo Tepo, is from Venezuela and says that Curacao is just the most beautiful place that there is. I'd like to go there. And the album does this, or the song on the album, we got to play, like the introduction is kind of cool. You'll hear Gonzalo playing like the sound of seagulls. And we make it kind of sound like a journey to that island. And so it has this kind of midnight kind of journey, voyage quality to it, kind of mysterious and jazzy all at the same time.
Let's listen to Curacao now here on Backstage Jazz. Justin, what music projects are you currently working on now?
I want to put a plug in also for, first of all, a singer who I get to work with and have worked with for my career, Lanny Garrett. I get to play with her coming up at Mount Vernon Country Club. She's really kind of mostly retired, but comes out of retirement sometimes to do these shows. And we're doing a tribute to Benny Goodman and Count Basie at Mount Vernon on, I think, November 15th, I want to say. I'm not quite sure. So that's fun to do that project as a reunion. I'm also part of a band I'm putting together right now with Greg Gisbert on trumpet, and his sister Robin Gisbert is doing the singing. And so it's just a trio called the Bloom Trio. It's music that's inspired by the songs of Blossom Dearie, but also has some original songs in it as well. And we're constantly trying to rearrange some of that material. We do some kind of kitschy but interesting tunes. Like one of my favorites is the theme to Star Trek, the old one.
Yeah.
And
the classic.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
The classic, and the lyrics are so wonderful. Beyond the rim of the starlight, your star voyage will go on forever. Well, that's the song.
You put lyrics.
Go ahead.
You put lyrics to the original theme?
No, actually, I think that one of the first original themes, it has those lyrics.
Wow.
And it's just haunting and beautiful.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Beyond the rim of the starlight, my love is wandering in starlight. I know he'll find in star-clustered regions love, strange love of star woman teaches. I know his journey ends never. His star track will go on forever. But tell him while he wanders his star reaching,
Yeah, I think nobody knows of those lyrics, but such a treasure. And I want that song played at my funeral. So if anybody here is listening,
okay,
there you go.
That'd be wild. Yeah. Is there a place we can send our listeners to find out more about your music and live shows?
Yeah, I'd love it. I have a website, justinadamspiano.com. And it's not very updated, but we'll be continually working to put new things on there.
That's great. Well, thanks for your time today, Justin, and please keep doing what you're doing. Music education is so important.
Well, thank you. I'm glad there's enough of us out there who realize that, and I think that's what it takes, is that type of acknowledgement from all of us that there's true value in it for us humans. So thank you for having me on the program and being willing to talk about that.
Okay. You're welcome to come on anytime you like, Justin. Thanks.
I love it. Thanks, Steve.
Okay.
If you're enjoying the Backstage Jazz Show, we'd love for you to like, subscribe, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And now, back to the show.
The Backstage Jazz Show was recorded at Little Raven Studios in downtown Denver, and our producer was Craig Stevens. You can find Backstage Jazz wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to stop by our website, backstage-jazz.com, where all past and current episodes have been archived. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can email us at backstagejazz@fastmail.com. This is Steve Roby. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Backstage Jazz.
You've been listening to the Backstage Jazz Show. Join us next time for more great jazz and interviews with your favorite musicians.